I meet a weird person. Somebody, to me, heroism is also taking a risk to rebel against mediocrity, like in the most simplest of ways. Like taking a risk to break the little bit of rule, to take that little bit of a leap of like that little protest against the bureaucracy. I mean, like literally at the line at Starbucks or something like that. Like even in the tiniest of ways, when I see people, just like it's almost like that little like glimmer in their eye, a wink, like we're in this together. There's all this conformity all around us. That's at a different time could have been Nazi Germany, could have been Stalinist Soviet Union. Sure. We're in this together. We're going to rebel against that conformity by just taking the risk, a little bit of risk against mediocrity.
I think a lot of people are not capable of that.
They're accustomed to it. I don't know if they're not capable.
No, I understand your position. I'm disagreeing with it. I'm saying I do not think they're capable. I think a lot of people effectively don't have souls. They do not have a conscience in this sense where they're going to look at an issue, bring their critical thinking, and say, all right, I am going to do the right thing, although I'm taking a risk.
I don't think thinking is involved, or is it just taking that leap? There's something about that basic human spirit. Forget the thinking part. It's just saying like, I'll take that risk. They're taking that adventure. The same thing that got people to explore the seas, you know, throughout human civilization, explore land, explore the oceans, like that exploration. Like we've done stuff this way all this time. I'm gonna take a leap, and that comes out of nowhere.
But those people are the heroes. But I don't think that's universal. I'm going to use a very gauche example. There was a show called Scare Tactics, which was basically a candid camera, but they would scare people. Like they'd have vampires, whatever, and hidden camera and people's reactions. And so but sometimes the prank didn't work out like they expected. So there was one where they were hiring the people who were the marks, you know, the contestants, so to speak, who were hired to be a security guard. Okay, and you have to watch this factory overnight and you get paid. And what the setup was, some people were breaking out of the factory in the middle of the night, like in rags, and they were saying they were keeping us prisoner here, like blah blah, and just watch the person's reaction to this. And there was one security guard where he basically forced them back into the building, and they're working us 24/7. We're getting beaten. He's like, I'm here to do a job, get back in there. And you watch this, and it never even enters his head to be like, something's wrong here. He was given his orders, he's following his orders, and to me, that is not uncommon. And that person, although they look like you and I, there's something essentially human missing with them. Now, very quickly, the reaction is, well, it's one step from there to Nazism. I don't think it's something I'm not saying this person should be killed, but I'm just saying to expect that every human being has the capacity to have that defiance, especially at a cost of their life. That, I think, is not realistic.
You can run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Sooner or later it comes you down. Sooner or later it comes you down. Go and tell that long-tongued rider. Go and tell that great divider. Tell the reveler, the gambler, the night rider. Tell them the gods cut them down.
Listen to them, Marxists. Can you hear the horns honking? Can you hear them? They honk for thee.
I swear to God, we'll have them still. When they took away everybody's free will. Tell the rambler, the gambler, the night, knowing the gods sooner or later gonna cut you down. You can run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. But sooner or later God'll cut you down. Someday soon God'll cut you down. You can run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Run on for a long time. Sooner or later, cut you down. Someday, cut you down.
And now, with no further ado, Scott Campbell and Jay Shaw, the Unacceptable.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night. We skipped Tuesday. We had some weather events here, some cold weather and some wind due to global warming. So welcome back Thursday night here with Jay and I. I'm going to bring Jay in a second here. I just want to talk briefly about what we're going to talk about tonight. More or less, we're on the brink of World War III. Let's face it. From all indications, from all the money being flooded into Ukraine, from all the troop positioning, from all the pilots being trained to fly British aircraft, from everything, from that to the Nord Stream pipeline being blown up, we're on the brink of World War III. So I'm going to do this now. Open this. And crack a beer and bring my buddy Jay here in. You ready, Jay? All right, here we go. Jay's thumbs up. We're good to go. Here's Jay Shaw, Mr. Unacceptable himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Jay Shaw.
Good evening,
Jay, welcome.
everyone. I hope everybody's doing great. As Scott mentioned, the weather was pretty crappy here on Tuesday. I was without power for about 7 hours. In Creston, like the nearby town, there was people who didn't have power for 29 hours. And then that was Fortis. And then 4 hours later, they did a scheduled maintenance shutdown of 4 hours that nobody was told about. They had scheduled it on their end. They didn't notify anybody. So just as everybody was getting their place warmed up and stuff again, the power went out again for 4 hours. So yeah, pretty horrific. My plants, when I woke up, were all laying down, all my little sprouty guys and everything. I gave them a shot of the diluted Epsom salts, a foliar application, which is to spray it on the leaves. And what that does is it boosts their immune system so that they don't get attacked while they're in that state. And it's supposed to help plants that are struggling like that. And not a single one of them didn't stand back up by the evening. So there you go, tested, and from all indications, that's a good method.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that one. I've got a couple I'll share with you outside of the stream as well for pretty much reviving plants from death, almost like completely bent over. Especially if you're using hydroponic. I've got a foliar spray, and then something you can dump into your hydro mix. I'll tell you about off the stream. I'm not going to share these secrets with everybody, just with you. But cool. I'm glad you were able to recover. You know, weather's a thing here for us folks. It's reality. We live in a rainforest. And so we get wind, and we get snow, and we get rain. This is not due to some sort of climate change. This is just simply what goes on here in this province. And it's funny how 10 years ago, I would have said, hey, you know, we just had some snow and well, we didn't have snow, but we had some freezing temperatures and a lot of wind. And people would say, yeah, for sure. I mean, you live in BC, it's a rainforest, and we live in the mountains. So you're going to have changing right on the ocean. You're going to have changing weather conditions. There's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of unpredictable things that happen. Now it's, oh my God, climate change. And I'm getting tired of that narrative. And I'm getting tired of accepting the fact that people are just believing that. They just automatically believe like, well, it's clearly climate change. It's global warming. It's global cooling. It's acid rain. It's all this climatology predictions. I'm tired of this shit. And it's like, when do you stop? When do you stop swallowing the hook? When do you stop believing what the mainstream media is telling you? When do you stop believing what your government's telling you when it's clearly not true? At some point, you have to stop.
Well, and maybe Nico Malice is right in that most people can't. And they literally, there has to be enough of us moving in a different direction for them to even question the narrative. Like,
Yeah.
and people are like that. It's mob mentality, right? Like we're a herding species of mammal primarily, right? And that's kind of, and I wanted to, that's the one sort of into that opening track, by the way. That's myself on, I guess,
Yeah.
rhythm and
Oh,
lead. Yeah.
I forgot to. Let me cut you off here, Jay, just for a second. I forgot to mention to everybody at home.
Yeah.
All of that was solely created by Jay. All the video, all of the music, everything. So kudos to Jay. That is going to be for the foreseeable future, at least. That is going to be our intro. And Jay, I mean, stellar job.
Yeah.
Fit,
I really
uh,
like the reverb acoustic guitar for
virtual,
that song.
yeah,
It's a
for sure.
nice touch.
And a virtual fist bump. There you go. Maybe a cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers, buddy.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Anyways, carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I had to say something there.
Yeah. No, sorry. My other addition to the episode before we move into Scott's topics is I just wanted to tell everybody along these lines. I wanted to share with everybody a story, and this goes back a long time. We're going back to. I want you to imagine yourself as a hunter and gatherer. Like you live in sort of a lean-to type of hut, animal skin over some poles, fired right close by to keep you warm at night, etc. But you happen to be of the Celtic persuasion, right? And so your people have realized that you can take these little grains that grow off of wheat plants coming out of the ground, and you can take them and dry them out. You can grind them to make flour, and you can make bread and things with that. Now, you haven't discovered yeast yet, but you can make bread, cracker-like stuff. And that's wonderful because what you're doing is storing energy being what everything really is. Our whole monetary system, everything is based on things that give you energy, whether it's through your mouth, in your gas tank, etc. And that's to this day. But then it was, how can you store any kind of energy whatsoever? You could store up firewood, and now all of a sudden, we can make this flour, right? And so then they started to go around and find this wheat, and they found an area with a lot of it, and they would just take it. But they're waiting in the summer for a first crop. They're waiting as the wheat slowly does its thing. It has to seed itself. The birds do it. And one day, it's late in the winter, and you go and look into store your grain, and you find that there's just a couple of handfuls left, right? And the snow is starting to melt, and the winter's almost over. And although in that moment you really want to eat this grain, you want to make a porridge or something, and you want to eat that, but you make in a brilliant decision. You decide, we know these are seeds, and if we don't eat these all, and we save some of them for spring and we put them in the ground, they're going to grow faster than for the bird brought them, etc. And they're probably going to grow all in one place, so they're really easy for us to get to. And then we can make our home here instead of having to follow the herds and move all the time in this stupid little lean-to. What you've done is changed your time preference from tomorrow to 3 months from now. And what happens the next year is, you planted all that grain closer together, and you've created a field. You've husbanded the land. Next fall, you have more grain for the winter, and you get to eat a little better, and you have more stored up. And it starts moving like this. That's what happens when you start thinking further into than tomorrow. We call it time preference. You'll hear financial people talk about time preference. That's as simple as it is. When you sacrifice today for tomorrow versus sacrificing tomorrow for today. And I'm not talking about putting money in the bank or anything specifically, but just as a general rule of thumb. If you're planning 3 months from now, that's not far enough. I started planting my seeds in January. I'm putting them in the ground maybe in March, probably in April. That's because I'm planning, right? I want to not be buying food at the store earlier in the season, and I want to have more food at the end of the season. So I want 2 crops. so that next winter I don't have to buy any vegetables or things from the store. Changed my time preference. And I didn't invest any money in it, $50. And I've just been reusing a lot of things. But what I did was change my time preference. And I said, look, there's some things that I can do to make my life better in the future. And if we can incentivize the people around us, the people that we care about, the people who we know are worth it, to start thinking that way and to do little things that have ripples that shoot way off into the future, then we can actually start to change things a little bit. And we do that by not engaging with nonsensical, time wasting things, and instead reward the people who do things properly, right? Instead of picking and choosing which politician, look for the ones that sound a little bit more like you and incentivize them and let them know that if they back you, they do better. Look in your local community, find somebody who has chickens. Go and get eggs from them. Why? Because then you're gonna have a constant source of eggs because you've supported it. And then one day when you're ready to get chickens and you go to that person and you say, hey, I need to get set up with chickens, they're not going to say no because you've helped them get to where they are. And they're going to be friendly back to you. And then when your chickens are doing well and you're well established and they're a little bit behind and somebody comes to them for eggs, they can phone you and say, how are you for eggs? This person wants to buy some eggs. And then you start working together like that, instead of being in this constant state of competition with everybody all the time. Figure out who's on your team and support them in any little way. You want to know how churches do so well, why people in churches do so well, why the Mormons own half the casinos in Las Vegas and the Pepsi Cola company. Well, it's because they work as a unit and they support each other, because they know that the people out there don't like them very much, at least not enough to support them. So they identify who their friends are. They look at their time preference and they say, if I make this friend now, 18 months from now when I'm in trouble, I'm going to have a hand up. That's how you need to start thinking, because we are mammals. We are herding mammals by nature. That's what we are. We are communal people. We like to gather together. We like to work together. We build things that are much too big for one person to build because it's in our nature to do that. And don't fight that within yourself. Embrace that in the positive way that it should be, and not in the negative way that we've come to do in our society, which is mob mentality. You can be a herd without being a mob, I guess, is the main concept here. Change your time preference, push it out into the future, and be part of a tribe and a herd and not a mob. And you will see things start to improve. And that's my thought on that. That's my little monologue. I gave it some good thought and thought I would present that to you just as a kind of a food for thought thing. Because sometimes it's nice to take analogy and work it into a personal narrative. So if that makes any sense to you, hope it helps. If not, let me know in the comments why I'm full of shit, and I will discuss that with you in a very civil manner, because I like civil discourse.
You know what, I can say certainly none of what you said was full of shit, and it ties in beautifully with what I had planned to speak about, this evening.
Perfect.
Which is what I led in with, which was the precipice of World War III, and the importance of being prepared and being self-sufficient, because ultimately, and I want people to understand here, if you live in a townhouse and you have a little, postage stamp backyard and you don't have a garden, you're fucked. If you live anywhere near a major decision-making center, you're pretty much fucked. So if you live anywhere near Washington, move somewhere else. And I'm not saying this to cause alarm. I'm trying to reach out to people and start the trend now. Prepare yourself. Yeah. So one of the things I've done is looked up Geiger counters. Look up on Amazon Geiger counters or radiation detectors. order yourself a supply of iodine pills because they will help. And I have a video for everybody to watch here. Maybe I'll roll this first, Jay, before I expand a little bit.
Sure.
But what I love about what Jay said here, and what's really important to me, is what we have here going on is we are, an operating farm, so we have our own supply of meat, our own supply of dairy, our own supply of eggs, our own supply of vegetables, our own supply of fruits. We also produce enough to give to others, to sell to others. And I would suspect at this point in time, we're looking at potentially being in a situation where we want to fortify and have a community fortify us I mean strategically partially, but I also mean in the sense of fortifying ourselves with supply lines from our local people. So we can produce 2 acres, to sort of 20,000 pounds of blueberries a year, and somebody down the road can produce 10, 12, 100,000 pounds of potatoes. Somebody else down the road can produce 100,000 pounds or 50,000 pounds or 1,000,000 pounds of corn down the road for feed for the animals. So we can all work together. And so this is our scale of things here in a farming community, but for a smaller scale community, you can all do that together. So Joe down the road can grow tomatoes. Bobby down the road has a couple of blueberry bushes. The other guy, like try and grow things that are super nutritionally valuable. And perennials. I mean, perennials are huge. And if you can provide yourself with some sort of all year round growing condition, like a hothouse or a glass sort of atrium added to the side of your house, if you've got lots of money, or just a simple, you can buy a greenhouse kit from Amazon built by Shelter Logic for $1,000 that will grow you all the food you need if you do it right and supply the right equipment all year long. 10 by 20 will grow you and your family all the food if you do it right all year long with very low energy costs. So these are things.
Or maybe a welder, for instance. Like I was a welder, and my dad's a welder, my brother's a welder, and so I snapped together on a weekend a hurricane-proof greenhouse out of a 3/8 inch rod and 6 mil plastic poly, which I buy every couple of years. It wears out. The sun beats it up. It's still, even right now, it's a $35 roll. I can hoard that whole thing in with plastic for $35. That cost me $200 worth of steel. And if you know somebody who can weld, that's not something that's like, we tend to think that these things are too big and too hard and there's too much work involved. You probably know somebody who could do it. We all know all kinds of people who can do all sorts of things, but we don't network because we've been told you go to Jiffy Lube to get your oil changed. Getting something custom welded is only for businesses. No private resident can ever have something custom welded. Shit like that. Like, it's not true.
So, and suffice it to say that almost on purpose, society has made most of the men now soft. And most of the men now fear any sort of work, any sort of like, oh, my fingers will be too dirty to handle my mouse or my keyboard when I'm clicking for likes on Instagram or scrolling on my phone. So not many people are sort of encouraged to be self-sufficient and to be proficient at anything other than ordering food from Uber Eats and getting likes on Instagram and trying to be an Instagram star. And I think that is very much by design. And I think what we are in the midst of is what I'm going to refer to as a designer war, because I think this is very much by design. And so I've thought a lot about this, and I found a clip today. I usually don't take my stuff from TikTok. I don't like to support that platform anymore, but I found this clip on TikTok, so I will play this this clip either way. This is Dr. Vernon Coleman, and this might be one of the most important things you'll watch in your life. So pay attention here, folks. This is a two-parter. We'll break in the middle here, but watch this, please, very carefully. All right, we'll be right back.
It's 2023, and this is my 321st video since the fake pandemic, the COVID fraud, and the designer war started. and began us on our long journey into the new abnormal and the Great Reset. This is, I believe, the most important video you'll ever watch, because it shows without any reasonable doubt that Joe Biden, the American president, accelerated the design of war between Russia and Ukraine, which has now become World War III, with America, the EU and the UK supplying tanks to attack Russians, and a German minister admitting that we are at war with Russia. Moreover, America, the EU and the UK are deliberately pushing us remorselessly towards the world's first and probably last nuclear war. Your life depends on knowing what I'm going to tell you and on doing something about it, sharing the video with everyone you know and demanding that your government resign. Everyone who has supported the war in Ukraine with money, flags, badges and so on has been helping to lead us into a nuclear war. Everything they've told you about Ukraine is a lie. The plot to start this war began in 2014, when America and the European Union, of which the UK was then a fully paid-up member, of course, helped overthrow a democratically elected government in Ukraine. Former President Obama admitted in 2015 that the US had been involved in replacing the democratically elected government and offering the incoming government, now headed by Zelensky, billions of dollars in aid. There are plenty of statues to and much support for Nazi collaborator Bandar. Look him up. The US wanted a puppet regime on Russia's doorstep as a launch pad for a planned NATO war with Russia. That was 2014. Obama, who was unbelievably awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, was, of course, responsible for much of the killing and destruction in Afghanistan. The current war in Ukraine started in 2014 but escalated in February 2022, and by then the Americans under Biden had already begun to get involved. In January 2021, a year before Russia was reported to have invaded Ukraine, the Americans had their eyes on the conflict, and there was open talk of halting the Nord Stream pipelines. Biden, you'll remember, became the 46th US president in January 2021. Before Russia invaded Ukraine, Biden warned, quote, "If Russia invades, then there will be no Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it." That's on record. The Nord Stream pipelines were set up by Russia to transport cheap Russian gas to Germany and the rest of Europe, and the Biden administration wasn't happy about this.
So I think it's inevitable at this point. I think it's very clear we're walking drunkenly and slovenly right into World War III, and people still I still see people's Twitter profiles with Slava Ukraine on there, and we have shown you in our channel war crimes being committed by Ukrainian soldiers, and people are still supporting this. I quite frankly, I find this unacceptable, and I'm not trying to, plug our name here at this point, but it's just ridiculous that you would look at that and go, well, dump a bunch of money, save Ukraine. They're not a NATO country. It's a territorial dispute that's been going on for decades. And all of a sudden, you want to push our countries, NATO members, towards World War III. And you might say, well, all we've done is supply them with what they need to defend themselves. But what we've done, essentially, is given them the armament and the training to stand against a country that is having a territorial dispute with them. And what that is an act of aggression by supplying them with surface to air missile defense, with tanks, with soldiers. Yes, with soldiers. Now, actively, technically, that's a violation of NATO law. But when you have soldiers on the ground training soldiers to fight other soldiers and embedded with soldiers to fight the soldiers, that is still an active soldier on the ground doing the thing. And there's been all kinds of video of Americans, Canadians, British people fighting Ukrainian, or rather fighting Russians there like, I mean, the Russians see this video. They know what we're doing. So they're very well aware of what's going on here. And for the fact that, I mean, Victoria Neufeld talked about how the Nord Stream 2 pipeline was unacceptable, and they had to get rid of it. You had Joe Biden say, if they attack Ukraine, they will blow up, or they will destroy Nord Stream 2. And then it happened, and then they denied that they did it and said that Russia did it.
Yeah. Spent billions on it and then blew it up themselves out of what, spite?
Out of spite. Yeah, $20 billion to put in a pipeline for their country to make money, and then they blew it up when all they had to do was literally shut the valves off, and the gas coming from their country would have been shut off. Why would they destroy all that infrastructure and spend money on destroying it and lose money supplying gas? Why would they do any of that? They just could have shut the valves off and it would have been over. So anybody that believes, anybody here that believes, anybody seeing this that believes that Russia was responsible for that, go away. Don't watch our stream anymore.
You're the guy that Michael Malice was talking about. You're the guy that Michael Malice was talking about.
You're the problem. You're the problem. You're actually literally believing something that's so absurd and incredibly unbelievable, but it's just being repeated. And you're going, well, it must be real because the government said so, or the mainstream media said so. Well, there might not be much helping you. I'm gonna share the rest of that. I'm a little bit animated tonight, Jay. I apologize. I'm gonna roll the other half of this clip here. Here we go. This is the other half of Dr. Vernon Coleman talking about what's going on here, and this is real shit here, real time, real talk. All right, here we go.
And his advisors had several objections. First, they didn't want the Russians being able to sell their own gas too readily to Europe. Putin had never been part of the globalist conspiracy and was a very large problem. Second, America wanted to sell American gas to Europe by transporting LNG across the Atlantic. This would enable them to make as much money as they could before billions die. Third, Biden and company knew that if they could pretend that the Russians had blown up their own pipeline out of spite and in response to the sanctions brought against Russia, the Europeans in particular would blame their high fuel prices on Russia and support intervention in the war in Ukraine. Fourth, the design of war against Russia would lead to the destruction of Europe, which is, after all, much closer to Russia than America. London, Paris and Berlin are all easily reachable targets. This was all part of the plan to reduce the global population. And so, according to a report by renowned Pulitzer Prize-winning 85-year-old Seymour Hersh, the greatest ever American investigative journalist and the man who broke the stories of the My Lai massacre in Vietnam and the events in Abu Ghraib in Iraq, Biden decided that he would blow up the pipeline and set up a task force with the CIA in early 2020 to plan this. Hersh reports that in June 2022, on Biden's orders, divers placed C4 explosive charges on the pipelines. This was done in great secrecy, and everything possible was done to keep it all very secret. The bombs were planted under cover of a military exercise in that month. The Norwegians who helped with the mission knew that they'd be able to sell their gas to Europe too. Then, in September 2022, a buoy, or buoy as the Americans call them, was dropped by plane and the charges were set off. The US Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs, Victoria Nuland, hailed the destruction of the pipeline at a Senate hearing. Inevitably, the US blamed Russia, claiming that they'd blown up a pipeline which had taken Russia 15 years to build and had cost $20 billion. The result of all this is that the prices for fuel in Europe and the rest of the world have skyrocketed. The price of food has inevitably soared too. There will be hundreds of millions of deaths in Asia and Africa where people can no longer afford fertilizers, food or fuel. Biden must go down into the history books as one of the most evil men in history, and now we're heading rapidly towards a nuclear war. Under Sunak's alleged leadership, Britain pretty well bankrupt and at the start of a major recession, is talking about supplying jet fighters to Ukraine on top of the billions of pounds worth of bombs and bullets already sent. And it seems certain that it will. America and Germany and the UK all denied that they'd send tanks, but they are. And the UK is already training Ukraine pilots to fly British jets. The future is now bleak indeed. We have been betrayed by everyone. In the UK, Charles the hypocrite and a staunch supporter of a smaller global population has always been a vocal supporter of Ukraine. The globalist conspirators know that the COVID jab has destroyed the immune systems of billions and will make those individuals who have been jabbed far more vulnerable to the radiation effects if nuclear bombs are dropped. As I warned in a video in May 2022, they want a nuclear war. The fake pandemic was always a distraction, a compliance program, and a way to weaken immune systems through the fake vaccines. The CIA and the White House have denied Seymour Hersh's story, but you know that what he's saying is true because the mainstream media, led no doubt by the CIA, is now describing him as a discredited journalist and self-publisher, the very same words they used to try and discredit me early in 2020. You'll know, by the way, that the beginning of nuclear war is very close when Charles leaves Buckingham Palace and suddenly decides to go to one of his country palaces, in Scotland perhaps, and when Sunak goes to Cornwall on holiday, and when Macron disappears into the country, and so on. Anyone in or within 30 miles of a decision-making major city, such as London, Paris or Berlin, would be well advised to leave when that happens. It's time for us all to prepare. You'll need food, medicines and cash. Our comfort is that we have God on our side. Please share this video. Our only chance of stopping what they've planned is for the world to know.
I think that clip speaks for itself. It's kind of hard to ignore at this point, and if you're ignoring it, it's because you want to. It's because you want to bury your head in the sand. And the one thing is that I want people to realize is that the thing you get when you cross an ostrich with a sheep is an animal that sticks its head in the sand and allows itself to get fleeced.
Mm-hmm.
So really think about what you're doing right now. Make your community ties stronger. Have a go bag. I'm going to cover what I would say is a pretty radical, not radical in the sense of crazy, but just pretty cool 72-hour bag build. I'm going to cover that next week.
And we can compare notes because I have one too.
Cool. Yeah, I've got two different builds. One for tactical and one for support because I have a two-person team, and so I'm able to expand mine a little bit. So I'll do the support one first on Sunday. I guess that would actually be really great for Sunday's content because that's kind of what we do on Sundays is kind of more down to earth and more happy subjects rather than the fact that we're on the precipice of World War III, because that's shitty. And I don't want to be one to rain on anybody's parade. I'm not trying to bring negativity to your life. I just want you to be prepared, do some research, start doing some reading, buy books, because if there is any sort of power grid failure, you can't look up instructions online on how to do things. So if you don't have knowledge, like somebody who's done these things their whole lives, for instance, Jay and I, or any farmer or any craftsman or any tradesman, you don't know how to do it. You can't look it up anymore. So please buy books. There's lots of good ones out there, and I can certainly start a list of things that people might want to pick up right away, but buy books and figure yourself out. Certainly prepare yourselves just in case. I mean, if nothing happens, then at least you can say you were ready.
It's time well wasted. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I mean,
for
yeah,
sure.
you could spend your evenings watching Netflix and your weekends, you know, doing silly things, or you could just, or you could spend those times
Yep.
productively becoming a better person, and save
Mhm.
yourself a bunch of money. I mean, the thing is, you don't have to need a garden to benefit from it. How much money can you save in a year by having a garden? Tremendous amounts. I grew 1,600 pounds here last year. You know, that's when you think about the average price per pound of food in the grocery store is like $7 right now. It's pretty significant. So it's not something that's going to not benefit you
Like,
to know these.
it should be noted too that not only will you save money, but the food you will get out of your garden is incredibly more nutritious. You'll know everything that goes into it, everything that was in the soil, so you'll be able to control any of the maybe the bad things that might be in the food that you buy from the grocery store. Not that I'm saying they do bad things, because I sometimes supply food to the grocery stores, but some of the suppliers are less on the level than others. Let's just say that.
Mhm.
Um,
If
and
you buy
that's
cheap at a grocery store, it is full of preservatives and toxins and shit
exactly,
like
exactly, exactly.
that.
Yep, yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But moreover, it's important to realize that if you can save that money, it's great. But if you can be more nutritious and have better tasting and
Hmm.
and better preservable food, like people, it's funny to me that when I bring tomatoes from our greenhouse to people at work or friends, and they taste them, they're going, "I've always heard people say tomatoes taste like candy, but I've never tasted one." Well, grow your tomatoes, because you can't
They're
buy good
so yeah,
tomatoes
it's
from
so
the store,
easy.
and they're so easy to grow. They grow like weeds because they're
Yeah.
literally a weed.
In a pot.
You
You
know,
don't have to cut a hole in the ground. You don't have to
it's
till. You don't
exactly.
have to you just pots.
And there's so many you can grow cherry tomatoes, and they're full of lycopene, which is a great nutrient. They're full of phytonutrients, they're full of vitamin C, vitamin D, they're full of great stuff. So, and
Hmm.
mostly you can do so many things with them, like pasta sauce, and so you can preserve them, you can can them. So
Yeah.
tomatoes are very versatile, and they lend to a lot of foods, butter, chicken, whatever you want to eat. There's
Yeah.
probably some form of tomatoes in. You can make tomato
Yeah.
paste, you can concentrate it, there's a lot of things you can do with it. But either way,
A lot of people are growing their tomatoes and potatoes, which are two really easy ones that you will not starve if you grow
Mhm,
enough of those. You just
mhm.
won't. You might not have the greatest range of food. You won't starve. And a lot of people are now just taking those fabric bags that you get at the grocery store, because we're not using plastic bags anymore. Those fabric bags that cost like some are 35 cents. You can literally fill that with soil and you can grow a plant in it, right? So don't go buy a shitty plastic molded polyurethane that you really don't want to be eating and put your stuff in it, when you can just go get one of those bags, put it by the side of your house so it catches some reflection, and give it water. Like that.
uh,
That's really all you need to do.
don't grow anything in plastic. I mean, simply said,
No.
water is the strongest solvent on the planet. When you run water through plastic constantly, it erodes some of the plastic into what you're consuming. And
Yeah.
if you don't clean it out, or you have, for instance, say you're growing marijuana, that's a fixer. So it will fix any of the toxins into its leaves, into its production, and you can't get that out. Well, if you it depends what it is. You can rinse some stuff out, but you can't get most stuff out of
Yeah.
fixers. Tomatoes
No.
are also a fixer. So if you grow them in a plastic and it's not a safe plastic to grow in, you're gonna
Mhm.
eventually absorb that plastic up into your food. So don't do that.
Yeah.
Make sure you use something like a clay, soil, brick, something that's safe to grow in, because
Yeah.
tomatoes are a fixer. All right.
Yeah, if
Um,
you like for me, I use plastics, which are all the I always biodegradable for my germination process. But the thing is, I'm using them one time, throwing them away, and they're in that for 3 weeks. It's not like putting a plant in that
no.
plastic. It's now stuck there for the entire season, and then you're gonna rinse it out and use it again because you paid $50 for it. It's like, I mean, there's there's quick tricks and tips you could use, but at the end of the day, your health is the most important. And we're always going to point out the effective and yet cost negligible way to do things, and that because this isn't about us making money, it's about we want a tribe to make it through this, and we want that tribe to be you.
Yeah. Well, perfectly said, Jay. And I've got one last clip I want to roll in regards to. We'll just get back onto the subject of what's going on in the world. I hope that you guys are taking something from this. It always seems to me, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but it always seems to me like we sort of always go towards what we do, generally speaking, in our lives to be more self-sufficient, and I like this, and now is when people should take the most value out of what we say and what we can do, and in the links we give you. So we'll I think we're going to go a little bit of the extra mile here for the information, because I think right now, like before, sure, it was critical for health and for saving money and maybe supply chain and stuff, but now actually you might not be able to get your food because there might be a war coming.
Yeah. And this is not like Y2K. We're not telling you to go out and buy shit piles of astronaut food and canned goods. Just learn how to grow things.
Yep.
Simple,
yeah, exactly.
simple things.
Exactly. And again, this is not, something, not that we would ever do this, but this is not something we're promoting to make some sort of industry, proliferate. It's just simply we care about our viewers, and we only get 20 viewers, maybe we get 60, maybe we get 600. It doesn't matter. We still care about all of you. So I hope that you guys can take what we're saying and sort of run with it. For those of us under our umbrella, under my care, under Jay's care, you have the benefit of our knowledge and our care. But for those of you that aren't under that care, please take some of this, clip it, share it, subscribe to our we have always in every stream at the bottom, we have our socials rolling, our subject matter. Please subscribe to our Rabbit Hole Guilt Telegram page, subscribe to our YouTube page where you see us now, and follow us, and share, because if we're sharing good information and you're liking it, you should share it so other people benefit from it. Okay.
Well, and I mean, to build an iron, or to build a steel man here from the other side. Now, let's say you don't believe that any of this is a risk, that nothing's going to happen, et cetera, et cetera. Then you probably also believe the global warming hype. And I say to you that you want to fix global warming. Growing your own tomatoes rather than having them trucked from Mexico is probably going to do that better than anything else. So even if you don't believe me, I'm still right.
And exactly, you're completely right. And just ask any environmentalist what they think about this war in Ukraine and how beneficial it is to the environment. We can just leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly.
Less
and we forget about the blown up pipeline when it isn't Exxon's fault, or if it isn't BP Petroleum's fault. It doesn't matter. Oh, it just happened, right? But if that was an oil company, then we're going to have tribunals, and we're going to cuss the oil industry out for 25 years, even though they cleaned it up themselves and they don't deny that they did it.
Exactly. Unbelievably. All right, so we're gonna move on to. Actually, I have one last clip here. So we're gonna tie in here. So we had Joe Biden supporting the war in Ukraine, as you just heard from Dr. Vernon Coleman, and we had Joe Biden deciding to go to Ukraine and gift $500 million, just to gift, not a loan, just a gift to Ukraine, to support their military effort against Russia, so to push us further towards World War III. We had him do this instead of going to Ohio, where they had the Ohio train disaster, as I'm going to call it now. I don't know if that's a term yet, but I'm going to do it now. Where we had a very serious chemical escape into the atmosphere, and there's fallout all over the place from it. This is Tim Pool from Timcast IRL. Please follow him, guys. He will be Timcast will be my my Sunday focus, as we always do on Sundays. We do a focus on an independent media source that we believe in, and Tim Pool's been killing it lately. So,
and I
please
just
go
want
follow
to
him.
point out one thing that confused for the longest time about Tim Pool. If you go on YouTube, there's Tim Pool, there's Timcast, and there's Timcast IRL. Timcast IRL is the only one that actually has the episodes. Okay, the
That's
other
correct,
ones are
yeah.
clips and things, but IRL is and he actually tried to retire Timcast itself a couple of weeks ago. He put a poll up and he let all the libtards come in and vote him to retire it. And he said, yeah, that's because there's too many channels and it's confusing to people. Stick to IRL.
Stick to IRL. And it should be noted that Tim Pool himself is not a Republican per se. He is He is not Democrat per se. I think he's more left leaning than right leaning for sure. But,
he's a Korean American.
Exactly. And what I love about this is that we can give an honest perspective, and let's just listen to what he says, and we'll be right back. This is just a short clip, guys.
Following my coverage of what's been happening in East Palestine, you know that I am particularly perturbed over what's going on in this small town and what the Biden administration has done. For those that aren't familiar, there was a train derailment, a chemical spill, a controlled burn, chemicals blanketed the area. And you know what really grinds my gears? Chickens died. We got a video of a lady. Her chickens are all dead. And that crosses the line. Now, in all seriousness, I am actually upset to see someone's backyard chickens are dead. People care about their animals. And it's not just about chickens. Some guys, foxes, there's dead birds, there's dead fish. You get J.D. Vance scraping the ground of a creek and chemical plume bursts up. Then you get the media lying about it. And you get Joe Biden traveling halfway around the world to a country most Americans don't know or care about to give $500 million. And he says to these people, so what? Now we got people like the Krasensteins, liberal commentators being like, Joe Biden's in a war zone, fighting a dictator. And, Trump is doing a photo op. And I'm just like, that's it. Your Krasensteins come out and say that Trump is doing the bare minimum. He brought a few pallets of water. So what? And I'm like, and Biden couldn't even do that. Okay. This one really pisses me off for a lot of reasons. It's the American people, working class Americans, who are being ditched to the gutter, living in this area where their home, the property value is probably zero now. No one's going to want to buy a house there. Animals are dying. They got one grocery store taking water bottles off the shelves, scared over what might be in the water. And now we got this. Savannah Hernandez, shout out, she's been on Timcast IRL before, doing real journalism, confronting Pete Buttigieg, who shows up only after Trump. And, I got to be honest. Often when I see these gotcha ambush questions, I roll my eyes. Savannah Hernandez asks a very simple question to the press secretary and to Buttigieg. Why did you only come after Donald Trump? Why weren't you here right away? That's a legitimate, real question that I would like to hear an answer on. And Pete Buttigieg need only say something like, look, we were trying to assess the situation. We were getting varying reports. He could have made up any excuse. Instead, Buttigieg ignores a simple question that people want to know about, ignores, and what I would consider an opportunity to get his statement out. He just leaves. This I can't stand.
I mean, he's straight up. He's correct there. Pete Buttigieg dropped the ball without even exaggerating. And I think it's disgusting to me that people that vilify the Trump administration previously and Donald Trump in general as a person, look at this and go, well, he just showed up there to get pictures and get himself votes. Well, you know what? If he's there doing a good thing for the American people and he thinks that'll get him votes, fucking rights, do it. Like, what do I want a politician or a leader to do for my life and in my country? I want him to do good things. So if he's showing up there and he's giving me water and food in the midst of a disaster, then this is the man. If I have a president that's leading our prime minister in our case, that's leading my country, that leaves the country in the midst of a disaster, which has happened here, by the way, in Canada. And I'm going to maybe touch on that in the next stream, but like, at least show up.
It's better than than doing nothing but virtue signal.
Well,
And standing up on a stage and talking about how awesome all the liberal people are and how little they give a fuck about everybody who lives in Pennsatucky.
well, and this is the thing. I mean, we're looking at the leader of the most powerful country on earth leaving his own country to support a country that's having a territorial dispute
During Chernobyl 2.0.
during Chernobyl 2.0. And
I said it.
yeah, well, I mean, you're not inaccurate. I mean, the fallout from this, I mean, there's people that are
Oh, yeah.
coughing up, there's people that are coughing up blood at this point.
Yeah.
I've seen reports of it. I've seen videos of it.
The only difference is that Chernobyl is in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, where there's literally like there's no towns or anything. So if anything, this is worse.
Yep. Yeah, and this is going to kill way more people, more people, and nobody, nobody in the States is like, oh well, we support the Ukraine. I think everybody in the States is like, what's going on? I don't think that we're the people that are the only people going, why are they supporting Ukraine over this? So I think, well, unless you're a Democrat. And if you're a Democrat, you just believe what Joe Biden says because you're a fucking idiot. But suffice it to say that I think any rational human being in the States is going, wow, we just had like a major, major disaster in Ohio. Why are you there instead of here? And so I hope
as long as you don't wake up every if you're like the thing is, and if you want to see into that person's head and go, what the fuck are they thinking? Here's what happens: they get up in the morning, they go to brush their teeth. Orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. They're driving the car, orange man bad, orange man bad, orange man bad. So there's nothing else that enters their whole spectrum. Putin and the orange man is the problem. Everything else is okay. Oh, they blew up pipelines in the ocean. That's fine because Putin and orange man. That's what's going on there. As far as I can tell, it's that level of cognitive dissonance, basically.
Well, it's cognitive dissonance. It's also dissonance, sorry, and it's also demoralization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, marginalizing people, essentially, like Michael Malice says, by like Lex Friedman says, by simply making mediocrity the goal. Let's not have anybody win these competitions. Start that with children, right? Track and field competition. What's the point? Does nothing. We're not keeping score. We're not timing them. We're not giving out awards for being better. It's just let's all be mediocre as fuck and not be good at anything and not excel. Because when people excel, it means that there's other people who aren't excelling, right? And this is exactly verbatim Stalinism. If you think that you should dislike Putin because he's part of the he was a KGB agent and therefore directly attached to Stalin. What Stalin, his concept was the same thing as intersectionality, to say that everybody who's victimized needs to be paid by people who are privileged. And you know where that happens? Do you know who isn't victimized by somebody? Fucking nobody. I'm fucking Scottish. Okay, my people were fucking mercilessly shit kicked by England for 600 years. Now I don't get to lay down and cry ass and say that every world is fucked because my great grandfather had a tough time, because that doesn't fucking make any sense, and it's not adulting, right? It's childish, stupid ass behavior, right? It happened then. You're dealing with your lifetime. None of that stuff before. All it is it creates envy. And envy is the one emotion that will make you murder and kill. Those students at Columbine who shut up Columbine High School, I have read their journals, and those people were suffering from extreme envy to the point where they were not only upset that they were born, they were upset that the universe exists at all. If they had access to the doomsday key that would wipe out everything that exists, they would do it simply because they were disliked by a group of people who happened to have more friends than them. And unlike people like me, who I was a nerdy kid, I'm still a nerdy dude, but they just didn't have what it takes to actually be unpopular and just live your life anyway. And that's what they're doing. They create envy by saying, oh, these people were taken advantage of by those. And that's what Stalin's secret police did. If they want to get somebody because they didn't like them, they would find a way that that person was privileged and that their neighbors were disprivileged. And that gave them the justification to arrest, torture, and put that person in a concentration camp until they're fucking dead. That is what Marxism does.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what you support with a ballot that supports the Green Initiative, or as the people of the continent of Africa who are now cooking with coal and dung again call it, the Green Genocide, because basically you're going to set the third world back 30 fucking years after we all spent all that fucking time working so hard to get these people out of poverty and not starving to death. And now it's cook on coal and shit again and die. And that's virtuous. That's fucking empathy. It's not fucking empathy. It's cognitive empathy of a narcissistic fucking person who wants to be hero worshipped by you. That's it.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I mean,
sorry for the rant.
No, it's perfect. I think Jay Shaw, everybody, the incomparable Jay Shaw. I think what you said is very telling, is very timely. The very fact that people still doubt that we're in the midst of a Marxism takeover, in my opinion, by communist China, and likely the Russians, because they will be banding together in this war we're in the middle of this, sort of sinking into. I think this is very, very timely and very telling. And so we're almost out of time, folks. I hope you enjoyed the show. I want to say two things. Number one, thank you to Jay for that intro clip and all the work you did on that. The audio was brilliant. That original audio and that original song was great. And thank you so much, Jay, for that. I always appreciate your work and your words. Always good to have you, folks. Much love. Take care of yourselves out there. Grow some food.
Yeah.
Find and connect to a local farmer. Support the most local farmer you can. So in BC, it's pretty easy. You don't have to go too far. Just go to a few rural areas and you'll find a local farmer. Support them first and now, and support that food supply line before it's too late, before they run out of money to grow the food that they need to grow for you, when things go for a shit and they can't sell their food to somebody who's buying a whole bunch of it. So establish that supply line while you can. If you are anywhere in Vancouver or the Lower Mainland, hit me up, Fringe Monkey 22 on YouTube or at Fringe Monkey 22 on Rumble. Hit me up directly here at the Rabbit Hole Guild. You can find a way to message us there. Please directly. We have food that'll be popping off the spring. We always have food. Please establish your local supply line, support your local farmers, grow your own food, and stop supporting places like Walmart and all these places that are major global chains, because when they fail, because they will in the midst of a war, when they fail, you won't have anywhere else to go for your food. So please.
Actually, they won't fail. They'll do just like what the IT industry did. The second that they're not making as much profit as they want, they'll just start cutting people, start dropping the hatchet, selling stuff off. The second they're about to lose money, they're not going to go out of business to supply you food. They're going to take every last farthing that they can, and then they're going to fuck off with all the money. That's what they'll do to you after they've created a dependence.
Yeah. Enough said. I mean, it's all about money. So take that money and take that power back. Save yourself some money. Give yourself some health. Live longer. Be happier. Have a better community. Supply people with food they can't grow. Take food from them that they have in excess amounts, and just connect back with your people. Find your friends. Find your people. It's really
do collectibles.
Right,
collect seeds. Collect seeds. That's a cool thing to collect.
Yep.
They're nice little packages. You can put them on little displays and shit like baseball cards. And you know what? They'll also keep you fed if they need
Yep.
to.
The power of seeds, we've discussed it before on the stream. The power of seeds is incredible, and
Yeah.
we usually will touch on things like that on Sundays. I think that's going to do it for us tonight, though, folks. It's been fun. Much love. Take care of yourselves out there. Find your community, find your people, find your friends, and join us again Sunday. I think we'll go on at 8, Jay, on Sunday.
Yeah, works for me.
All right. 8 o'clock Sunday. We'll see you there. Much love. We're the Unacceptables. Good night.